My friends and I decided to visit the local haunted house attraction, which opened every October on the outskirts of town. It was located near the forest, which made it even spookier. The attraction had three main features: the haunted house, a corn maze, and a scary trail through the woods. With me were Rod, James, and Bud, his nickname. We started with the haunted house, which was pretty good with a few solid scare moments. Afterward, we moved on to the corn maze. At first, it was calm as we navigated the twists and turns among the corn, but soon the scary tricks began. A man dressed as a creepy scarecrow jumped out of the corn and screamed at us, making us scream in return. He started chasing us, and naturally, I was the one at the back with the scarecrow right on my heels. Even though I knew it was just an actor, the fear of being chased felt very real. During the chase, I got separated from my friends as everyone ran in different directions. I lost the scarecrow and found myself back on a path in the maze. That's when the nightmare began. I started calling out for my friends, shouting their names, but there was no response. It seemed like there were no other visitors around anymore. I had no choice but to keep going through the maze alone. After about 20 minutes of walking, I heard rustling in the corn ahead of me. I slowed down and tried to pass quietly, but it was no use. Something grabbed my wrist, squeezing tightly. I screamed in pain and shouted, "Stop! You're hurting me!" I was shocked at how hard this person was holding me. He tried to pull me into the corn. I could only see his arm, covered by a black coat sleeve and a black glove. I yanked my hand free and backed away. The actor stepped onto the path, dressed in a winter coat, black jeans, and a blank black mask. I yelled at him that he hurt me, but instead of responding, he started running toward me. I sprinted through the corn, trying to get away. I kept shouting that I would complain, and after about 5 minutes of running, I finally lost him. I exited the maze and told a staff member about the incident, but they had no idea who was wearing that costume. I thanked him and called James. He said they had tried to find me, but ended up heading to the scary trail in the woods. I made my way to the forest, and as soon as I stepped onto the trail, I saw that same man again. He began running at me once more, and I ran into the woods, shouting that I would call the police. I hid for a while, and after some time the chase seemed to stop. But just when I thought it was over, he reappeared. He attacked me, knocking me to the ground, but I managed to get up and escape to the attraction's office. There, I reported the incident to the manager, and he called the police. Although I didn't have any visible injuries, the officers filed a report, and the attraction was closed for the night. After that, we went home, and I never went to haunted attractions again. Two halves. When I turned 13, a friend of mine invited me and 2 other friends to stay at his place for Halloween. He had a big house outside of our town, and it was the perfect place to collect candy. He decided that it would be interesting to collect sweets first and then watch a movie. After the walk, we reached the end of our route. A woman opened the door of one of the houses. She was tall and slender with shoulder-length hair. Her house was very dirty, and we smelled cigarettes. She quickly said she didn't have any more candy, but she could find some for us. A few minutes later, she returned with an old brown paper napkin with old candies in it. We politely declined, saying we'd be picked up soon, so we'd better leave. But she grabbed one of my friends by the hand and said, "No, please." However, my friend pulled away from her, and she quickly closed the door. We knocked on a few more houses when we heard a noise in the parking lot of one of the residential complexes. Someone shouted, "They took my baby! They took her!" She was the woman who hit my friend's parents' car. She rushed at the car and started beating it. Several neighbors came out to find out what had happened. They obviously knew her. They apologized to us and said it was a big misunderstanding. We quickly got into the car and my friend's mother started driving us. But soon this woman suddenly rushed in front of the car, declaring that one of us was her child. The neighbors pulled her away again, but the real horror began that evening. We watched scary movies until late at night, as teenagers usually do at night parties. Suddenly, a light flashed in the corridor, which we saw under the closed bedroom door. We thought it was my friend's parents who were going to come in and tell us to go to bed. But no one came. I decided to see what was there, but no one was there. My friends joined me to find out why the light suddenly went out. One of them said, "That's her." Through a large window that looked out into the yard, we saw that woman standing and looking at us. But as soon as she noticed that we were looking at her, she ran away. It scared us a lot. Melissa returned to the room and closed the door. We panicked. Who is she? What does she want? We sat tensely, waiting for something. However, somehow we managed to fall asleep. The next morning, my friend's mom said she was so scared by the incident at the apartment complex that she thought she saw a woman above her bed at night. My friends and I didn't even tell her that we saw this woman in the yard at night, and it made us wonder, was this woman really in the house that night? Halloween fell on a Wednesday, and I was home alone. My father worked the night shift. My mother went to live with my sister because she and my father were having relationship problems, and my sister was in college. Thus, I became the only one who distributed sweets to children. My father bought several bags of Kit Kats and declared that they should be empty by the end of the evening. For some reason, he takes Halloween very seriously. I got home at about 6 in the evening, when it was getting dark and the kids were starting to go around the neighborhood. I had just dropped my backpack on the couch when the doorbell rang again, and it continued for several hours. Later, when most of the kids had left, I started doing my homework. It was already after 9 when the doorbell rang again. This happened for the first time in the last half hour. I walked up to the door with a nearly empty bowl of Kit Kats, expecting to see the kids, but in front of me stood a man, about 35 years old. He just waved at me with a neutral expression on his face and didn't even open the security door. I watched him, ready to close the door. He stopped waving, then reached for the handle of the security door and opened it. At that moment, I slammed the door in front of him and locked it. I wrote in the family chat that some strange man tried to come in. My father joked that if he tried again, I should raise him. I decided enough opening doors for today and went back to my room to finish my homework. Soon I heard screams from the street. Frustrated, I eventually got up to find out what was going on. He opened the window and looked out. The same man was standing below, looking at me and shouting for help to find his son. I didn't believe him. Wrote in family chat, and my father said to just ignore him. He'll be gone soon. I turned off the lights in the room so he would leave and went down to the basement where there were no windows. I decided to stay there for the rest of the evening. It was quiet for a few minutes until suddenly the lights went out. My first guess is that the man did something to the electrical panel near the house. I stayed in touch with my family all the time. A few minutes later, I heard the floorboards creaking above my head. Someone, and I could guess who it was in the house. My mother, father, and sister texted me to tell me to call the police. I stayed in the basement, thinking it was the best place for that moment. The police were already on the way, and all that remained was to wait. The basement door opened. He went down the stairs, but only halfway. Even in the dark, a little light from the upper floor filtered into the basement, and I could see his feet. He was standing in the middle of the stairs, and I thought he stayed there for about 2 minutes. I heard him mumbling something, but I couldn't make out a word. After the longest and most tense pause of my life, he said quietly, "I see you." His legs were turned towards me the whole time. Was he really looking at me? I didn't move, neither did he. He stayed there until he heard a loud knock at the front door. Then he went up the stairs, closed the door, and went upstairs again. I waited another 20 seconds before heading for the front door. When I got there, he was already gone. The police couldn't find him, even with my help. Like an idiot, I left the back door unlocked, so he just walked into the house. As for the electricity, He did turn off the electrical shield, as I had assumed. I don't know if it happened specifically on Halloween or if it was just a coincidence, but something about this man was clearly not normal. He definitely shouldn't have been out that evening. On Halloween night, I can't remember exactly what year it happened, but it must have been about 4 years ago, and I remember it being a Saturday. Now I will cut the parts and get to the point. My friend Tanner and I decided we needed to do something really scary tonight, and our decision led to an exciting trip to an abandoned house located on a high mountain near our campus. This house stood on top of a hill, and some students dubbed it the Blair Witch House, simply because it was completely alone in a fenced area and had been in a state of disrepair for many years. So, at about 10 o'clock in the evening, Tanner drove us in his car to the foot of the hill and stopped the car on a dirt lot near the entrance to the grounds. We began to climb the hill toward the house, and even the mere sight of the dark silhouette of the building looming in the darkness sent a chill of dread down my spine. We both brought backpacks filled with everything we needed, flashlights, knives just in case the need arose, and Tanner even brought a crowbar. Unexpectedly, the crowbar turned out to be completely unnecessary, since the front door was already slightly ajar. Here our flashlights came to the rescue, because inside the house it was as dark as the darkest night. The building seemed to be completely deserted. There was nothing left but trash and old, forgotten things. Nothing of interest. Suddenly, there was a loud sound from upstairs that sounded like a knock. Tanner and I looked at each other and, deciding to find out what it was, began to climb. Tanner went first, climbing the stairs that looked like they were about to break under the weight of our feet. Upstairs, we discovered a small corridor leading to 3 doors. We passed the first room, which turned out to be a tiny bedroom with a dilapidated bed that was covered in dust. The second room on the left turned out to be an empty bathroom, and there was only one room on the right in the corridor, which we decided to enter. When we entered it, there was no doubt that this was the master bedroom. The bed was still in the middle of the room, although it looked very neglected. There used to be a nice carpet here, but it seems to have been removed a long time ago, leaving only a cold wooden floor. We made our way to the center of the room, trying to figure out what could have made that strange sound. Suddenly, the door of the room closed again with a loud bang. At the same moment, the room was filled with a bright white light, as if it were camera flashes that appeared out of nowhere. Tanner yelled and opened the door in no time, running out of the room, and I followed without hesitation. We dared not stay there and look for whoever might be inside, for fear overwhelmed us. We sped to the car, and Tanner drove us back to our campus. A week later, Tanner sent me a photo. On it, he held a picture of the two of us in the same room of an abandoned house. He said that someone left this strange picture under his janitor in the parking lot near our hostel. I insisted that he immediately throw away those photos and not park the car in that place again. We decided to tell about this terrible adventure only to a few close friends, and from that time we never went near that horrible house again.